And we're back on Buckeye Talk, and it's time for our game picks. Ohio State playing Purdue at 12 o'clock noon on Peacock, not on normal television. First time in a while, I think since the 90s, since Ohio State hasn't been on cable television. The game will be on Peacock streaming. Andrew, we'll start with you. The line right now is Ohio State is favored by 19, with the over-under being 50.5. Mr. Gillis, what's your game pick?
So I'm going to give my reasoning first, and then I'm going to give the score at the end because I want
No. Give the score first. Yeah.
Okay. Ohio State 30, Purdue 21. This game is going to be closer than people want it to be and closer than people think. And the reason that I wanted to give my reasonings first was because I didn't want anybody to go and just start freaking out and say that I'm an idiot or something like that. Which you might do
say that anyway.
Yeah. So there's a couple different things that I looked at for this game that really just signal to me that this is a letdown spot. Whatever you want to value this at, you could value it a lot, a little, or just think it's an interesting footnote. Ohio State doesn't play well at Ross-Ade Stadium. But you could, again, I just kind of lean footnote. I don't really think it's a super big deal, but they don't historically play well there. And you're going into a game where it's a noon game on the road. It's a sleepy start. I look at, you heard Penn State last week with James Franklin. They talked about how they weren't playing music at practice because they had to get ready for the environment of Northwestern. Like, Purdue is closer to Northwestern in terms of environment than it is Camp Randall and than it is Happy Valley and Ohio Stadium and all these other great venues. Like, the Notre Dame game was a great venue. You hear about players talk all the time. I actually kind of like playing on the road because you can feed off of the energy. Well, there's not as much energy to feed off of when you're playing a game at Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette. Again, all due respect to the Boilermakers, it's just not a house of horror for other teams. So I think it's got all the makings of a sleepy game. The weather's not going to be ideal. We talked about that. You're not going to have Emeka Egbuka probably. That's going to be something that you have to work through. The run game has been a problem, and if the weather's bad, you're going to have to work through that. And let's say they do run the ball really well, like both of you guys are kind of saying that they will. That also burns the clock a little bit. That also lends itself to a closer game because Ohio State has played 5 games this year, and 3 of these teams have pretty much exclusively came into the game and said, we're going to run the ball. That's what we're going to do. One of them, Notre Dame, thought that they could run the ball to win the game, which they almost did. And that was their goal, is that we can run to win. Indiana and Youngstown State said, we're going to run the ball so the game ends as quickly as possible. But in those games, Ohio State scored 23, 35, and 17 points. Like, the score can stay down if a team is able to, even if you don't run the ball super effectively, the score can stay down. You got Penn State next week. That's a big letdown spot. And personally, you mentioned the line. The line is 19. This reeks to me. Like, if you're a gambler, you steer into the stink, and this stinks because Ohio State is the same amount of favorite as they were against Maryland last week. It's the same line. The line last week against Maryland was anywhere from 19 to 20, and that's what this Purdue line is. And the over-under is down to 50.5. So basically, what are they saying? That this game is going to be 35-14, 34-17? Like, this is kind of what they're predicting. They're not saying that Vegas, notoriously smart, doesn't think that Ohio State's going to walk in there and win 52-7. Like, they don't think that this game is going to be that. So I'm going to say 30-21. I think Purdue is never going to have a chance of winning this game. It's going to be a little bit like the Maryland game where we're just sitting up there going, wow, Ohio State's really not playing that well. What are they, Purdue, they don't have a shot of winning, but Ohio State's just not playing their A game. They might not even be playing their B game. I just think that this is a game where you get through, you burn the tape, you say, we'll never speak of this again. Now it's time to focus on Penn State. And fortunately for a lot of people, this game is on Peacock, so it's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does it make a sound? It's like if Ohio State plays like crap against Purdue and nobody sees it, did anybody really see it? Like, can anybody really talk about it? So, yeah, Ohio State's not going to play that well. They're going to win by single digits, and we're just basically going to say, wow, that was a mess, but now it's time to focus on Penn State.
I can't wait till these streaming numbers come out like next Monday or
I'm
Tuesday.
Fascinated.
It can prove you wrong in the nobody saw it conversation, because I'm pretty sure I think a lot of people are going to see.
Ohio State fans are going to do it. I just don't think they're going to be happy about it.
So Andrew, taking Purdue plus 19, but the over by literally half a point. He's taking the over. That's flirting with it, man. I'm going to go Ohio State 38-9. I think this game might play out very similar to the Ohio State Maryland game, except Ohio State is not going to give Purdue an opportunity to be in field position to start the game, so they score a touchdown, and then maybe Ohio State's defense comes out the second half and isn't sleepwalking through the first drive, so Maryland gets to go down there and score a touchdown. But you take those two things away, Maryland scored 3 points the rest of the game. I think the weather will have a little bit of an impact on Ohio State's ability to be explosive in the pass game. I think this is a week where Ryan Day might try to force it with the run game and see if they can get some holes open for Travion Henderson and train them and get things going there. But I also just think that Ohio State might do its work early and then try to get out of here so they can put their focus into the Penn State week. Because I think if they score 28 points in the first half, maybe they get 10 in the second half, and then they just kind of call it a day from there and run that clock out so they can get to the Penn State game. So it's a combination of, I have only seen this offense score 40 points once, and it was against Western Kentucky, who is not known for their defense. And it's a combination of the weather maybe preventing them from being as explosive as they want to be, but then also Ryan Day, Justin Fry, Brian Hartline really trying to get this run game going, especially since you've got your lead dog back there in Travion Henderson. So that's me taking Ohio State to cover, but I'm also taking the under, which Ohio State has kind of lived at this season. Nathan, what's your game score?
I really tried to get to an under. I couldn't quite get there with this one. I'm going 38-16, which may mean that you and I are sitting next to each other just waiting to see if Purdue gets kind of a backdoor cover late in this game there in the fourth quarter. I mean, we'll be doing other work too. But listen, I'm not that worried about Ohio State's history in West Lafayette. There's only two guys on this roster who were around for that game in 2018. It's Matt Jones and Josh Proctor. And yeah, they play now, but they didn't play then, and they weren't the reason why that loss happened. And having some familiarity with the history of that series, I was covering the other team in 2018. I was around for one of the other losses prior to that, the one where Ryan Kerrigan kind of came in. And it was cases where there were some Ohio State teams that had some flaws that could be exposed, and Purdue had the NFL talent to do it. That was especially true of 2018. Like, Rondell Moore was just kind of unreal that night. There ain't no Rondell Moore on this Purdue roster this year. And I think Purdue is a little bit better than its record, but I don't think that it is going to be able to offensively challenge Ohio State. Like, I'm seeing too much from this defense, and especially relative to what I think Purdue can put on the field in terms of efficiency and in terms of being able to reach and get the kind of explosive plays that it would take. Now, obviously, the weather can be an equalizer. Playing on the road can sometimes be an equalizer. There was something special that happened in that stadium in 2018, though, that superseded football a little bit, and that isn't really on the plate from what anyone can tell this year either. So I'm taking 38-16. That would be a cover. That would be an over. And I think it's, for Ohio State, it's really more about just seeing some fundamental progressions and a step towards being able to do what they did against Notre Dame, which is just get through that Penn State game, finding a way to win in some fashion. That one is definitely going to be 4 quarters and tight, and it's going to take probably their best performance this year.
So Nathan taking Ohio State to cover plus the over. I think we were in that position last week too, where our scores were pretty similar, and it literally came down to the last drive, I believe, and Nathan ends up getting it, and I don't. But
no, I got a sweet push.
Yeah,
because we picked it when it was still 20, so 37-15. I got a sweet push, but I did get the under.
That's true. So let's see if Nathan can have a repeat performance of that this week, or maybe I will be right, or maybe Andrew will be right, and we'll be having a very different conversation on the post-game pod because Ohio State only beat Purdue by 9. But those are our game picks for Ohio State's contest against Purdue on Saturday at noon on Peacock.